What happens when humanity discovers that the alien species they've been fighting for centuries are actually their own forgotten ancestors? You won't believe how one scientist's discovery changes everything, or why it might already be too late to undo the damage. In the crimson skies of Valyria, where crystal spires pierce through toxic clouds, humanity fights a desperate war against crystalline beings known as Lumina. These intelligent entities, shimmering with bioluminescent lights, have been our enemies for generations. Dr. Emily Carter, a brilliant xenobiologist stationed at Outpost Delta, has dedicated her life to understanding these enigmatic creatures. Her lab is a sanctuary of discovery, filled with glowing samples, humming equipment, and walls covered in complex equations. Every day, she pushes the boundaries of what we know about the Lumina, driven by an unshakable belief that there's more to them than meets the eye. The outpost itself is a fortress carved into the jagged cliffs of Valyria, its walls reinforced with layers of alloy designed to withstand the relentless assaults of the Lumina. Outside, the landscape is a surreal mix of alien beauty and hostile danger. Towering crystalline formations rise like ancient monoliths, their surfaces pulsating with light patterns that seem almost alive. The air is thick with sulfur and charged with energy, making every breath feel heavier than it should. Yet, despite the constant threat, the humans here cling to hope, believing they can carve out a future on this unforgiving planet. Every day, the outpost trembles from distant impacts as Lumina launch their relentless assaults. The crystalline beings possess an uncanny ability to manipulate energy fields, turning our own technology against us. Their attacks are not random. They are calculated, precise, and devastating. Emily spends countless hours in her lab, analyzing fragments of Lumina structures collected from battlefields. Her hands tremble not from fear, but from excitement. She's close to a breakthrough that could change everything we know about this conflict. Her mind races with possibilities, each one more astonishing than the last. The human settlement on Valyria was supposed to be our new beginning, a chance to rebuild after Earth became uninhabitable. Instead, we found ourselves trapped in an endless cycle of violence with these alien beings. The airlock doors hiss open and closed as soldiers return from patrol, their faces etched with exhaustion. Through her observation window, Emily watches another supply shuttle descend through the hazy atmosphere, bringing much-needed resources and more questions about our presence here. Why did we choose this planet? What secrets lie buried beneath its surface? And most importantly, why do the Lumina fight us so fiercely? We've only begun this story, but trust me, it's about to get far more intense. Stay to discover what happens when Emily's research reveals secrets that challenge everything we believe about this war. Deep beneath the surface of Valyria lies the Quantum Gate, a mysterious portal discovered during humanity's first days on this hostile planet. These gates connect disparate locations instantaneously, but their true nature remains unknown. Captain Marcus Hale leads a specialized unit tasked with exploring these portals, each mission taking them deeper into uncharted territories of both space and time. His team is a mix of seasoned veterans and brilliant scientists, all united by a shared curiosity about the gate's origins and potential. The last team that ventured too far never returned. Their final transmission spoke of shifting realities and temporal echoes. Now Marcus stands before the shimmering gateway, feeling its pull like a living thing. His fingers brush against the activation panel, and the gate responds with a cascade of colors that seem almost sentient. The air crackles with energy as he prepares to step through once again. Each journey through the quantum gates changes something fundamental about those who pass through. Some return with enhanced abilities. Others emerge with memories that aren't their own. The phenomenon defies all known laws of physics, suggesting these portals are more than mere transportation devices. They're evolutionary catalysts that rewrite biological code with every passage. Marcus's boots crunch against the crystalline crust of Zone 12 as his team sets up monitoring equipment around a newly discovered gate formation. The air shimmers with heat waves, distorting their figures like mirages in a desert. Private Chun calls out readings from her portable scanner while Sergeant Rivera marks coordinates on a digital map. Suddenly, the ground trembles, and the gate begins to pulse with an intensity they've never witnessed before. Colors swirl faster, creating vortex-like patterns that seem to stretch into infinity. Marcus shouts orders, but his voice is nearly drowned out by the growing hum that resonates through their very bones. They had seconds to decide whether to retreat or capture this unprecedented event. We're approaching the most critical moment. What's about to happen will overturn everything. You can't afford to miss the resolution of this story. Image prompt: a weathered soldier in futuristic combat armor standing before a swirling quantum portal, with distorted reflections of different worlds visible within its depths. In the background, other team members prepare equipment while strange energy patterns dance across metallic walls. The morning began like any other in Sector 7, with the acrid smell of sulfur hanging heavy in the recycled air. Emily pressed her face closer to the containment chamber, watching as the crystalline sample pulsed with an irregular rhythm. Something about its oscillation frequency triggered a memory from her childhood. The way sunlight used to dance through her grandmother's crystal chandelier back on Earth. Except this wasn't light refracting through glass. These were living organisms communicating in ways humans couldn't yet comprehend. The chronometer on her wrist beeped insistently, reminding her of the upcoming council meeting where she'd present her latest findings. But first, she needed to verify the anomalous energy readings one more time. As she adjusted the spectrograph settings, the crystal responded by shifting colors rapidly, almost as if it recognized her presence. Her assistant, Dr. Patel, entered the lab carrying a tray of nutrient solutions for the samples. "Dr. Carter, you've been at this for 12 hours straight," he said, concern evident in his voice. "You need to rest." Emily waved him off, her focus unbroken. "Not now, Patel. I'm on to something. Look at these waveforms. They're repeating in cycles that match human neural activity." Patel leaned over her shoulder, his eyes widening as he processed the data. "That's impossible," he murmured. "Unless—" He trailed off, unwilling to voice the implications. Outside, the wind howled through the crystalline spires, carrying with it traces of lumina energy. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their weapons ready, their faces grim. The outpost's generators hummed steadily, powering the defenses that kept the lumina at bay. Inside, Emily felt a sense of urgency building in her chest. She knew she was close to uncovering something monumental, something that could change the course of history. But with every breakthrough came new questions, each one more profound than the last. The council chamber buzzed with tension as Emily projected her data onto the holographic display. Generals and scientists leaned forward, their faces illuminated by the complex patterns of luminescent frequencies she'd recorded. "These aren't random attacks," she explained, pointing to the synchronized waveforms. "They're attempts at communication." A murmur rippled through the room, quickly silenced by General Harkoff's raised hand. Outside, through the reinforced windows, lightning forked across the crimson sky, momentarily illuminating the jagged crystal formations that dominated the landscape. Emily felt a bead of sweat trace down her spine as she prepared to reveal her most controversial theory, yet one that suggested the Lumina might be more victim than villain in this centuries-old conflict. General Harkoff stood, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the room. "Dr. Carter, are you suggesting that we've misinterpreted the Lumina's intentions?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. Emily met his gaze without flinching. "Yes, General. I believe we've been fighting a war based on misunderstandings. The Lumina aren't attacking us. They're trying to reach out. The room erupted into chaos, voices overlapping as everyone tried to make sense of her words. Emily pressed on, undeterred. Their energy signatures match patterns found in ancient human languages. They're speaking to us, and we haven't been listening. As the debate raged on, Emily's mind raced. She knew she was treading dangerous ground, challenging decades of military doctrine and societal conditioning. But she also knew she was right. The evidence was undeniable, and the implications were staggering. If she could prove her theory, it could end the war and usher in a new era of cooperation between humans and Lumina. But first, she had to convince the Council, and that was no small task. Marcus's boots crunched against the crystalline crust of Zone 12 as his team set up monitoring equipment around a newly discovered gate formation. The air shimmered with heat waves, distorting their figures like mirages in a desert. Private Chun called out readings from her portable scanner while Sergeant Rivera marked coordinates on a digital map. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and the gate began to pulse with an intensity they'd never witnessed before. Colors swirled faster, creating vortex-like patterns that seemed to stretch into infinity. Marcus shouted orders, but his voice was nearly drowned out by the growing hum that resonated through their very bones. They had seconds to decide whether to retreat or capture this unprecedented event. Private Chen's voice cracked with urgency as she relayed data from her scanner. "Captain, the energy signature is off the charts. It's rewriting itself, like it's alive." Her hands flew over the controls, trying to stabilize the readings. Sergeant Rivera glanced at Marcus, his face pale beneath his helmet. "Sir, we need to fall back. This thing could tear us apart." But Marcus hesitated, his instincts screaming at him to stay. Something about the gate's behavior felt familiar, as though it were reaching out to him personally. The decision came down to a split second. Marcus barked, "Hold position. Chun, keep recording everything. Rivera, secure the perimeter. If this thing collapses, I want every scrap of data intact." As the team scrambled to comply, the gate flared brighter, its light spilling across the landscape like liquid fire. For a moment, Marcus thought he saw shapes moving within the vortex, shapes that resembled both human and Lumina forms. Then, just as suddenly as it had surged, the gate stabilized, leaving behind a faint, lingering resonance in the air. Marcus exhaled sharply, realizing they'd narrowly avoided disaster. But the question remained, what had they just witnessed? Deep within the archives, Emily uncovered classified documents detailing the first encounters with the Lumina. The official report spoke of aggression and hostility, but between the lines, she found evidence of peaceful overtures from the crystalline beings. Her fingers traced over faded photographs showing early settlers working alongside Lumina structures, their forms blurring together in symbiotic harmony. The maintenance drones whirred softly overhead as she cross-referenced these findings with recent battlefield data. A pattern emerged, one that suggested the current hostilities might have been deliberately engineered rather than naturally evolved. The realization hit her like a physical blow, forcing her to question everything she'd been taught about Valeria's history. As she delved deeper, Emily discovered logs from the original expedition teams, detailing experiments conducted on both humans and Lumina shortly after colonization. These experiments involved exposure to quantum gate energies, which seemed to trigger rapid evolutionary changes. In humans, this manifested as enhanced cognitive abilities or heightened physical resilience. In Lumina, however, the effects were far more dramatic. They became aggressive, territorial, and seemingly hostile. Emily's heart raced as she pieced together the timeline. It wasn't natural evolution driving the conflict. It was manipulation. Someone or something had intentionally created the conditions for war. Her assistant, Dr. Patel, entered the archive chamber, his face grim. "Dr. Carter, you need to see this," he said, holding up a decrypted file. Inside were schematics for what appeared to be a massive underground facility connected to the quantum gates. "This changes everything," Emily whispered, her mind reeling. If true, the implications were catastrophic. Humanity hadn't stumbled into a war. It had been engineered from the start. The laboratory's emergency lights flashed red as Emily attempted to interface directly with a captured Lumina fragment. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits as the crystal fought against containment, its energy signature fluctuating wildly. Technicians scrambled to stabilize the system, while warning klaxons blared throughout the facility. Through the chaos, Emily maintained her focus, adjusting the quantum resonance field millimeter by millimeter. The crystal's pulses slowed, then steadied, until finally, a coherent signal emerged from the noise. It wasn't a threat or a weapon signature. It was a mathematical sequence so complex it made her head spin. Somewhere deep within the patterns lay a message waiting to be decoded. Dr. Patel rushed to her side, his tablet displaying real-time analysis of the signal. "It's not binary," he said, his voice trembling with excitement. "It's something entirely new, a hybrid code combining organic and synthetic elements." Emily nodded, her eyes locked on the glowing crystal. "They're not just communicating," she murmured. "They're sharing knowledge." As the decoding process continued, fragments of information began to emerge. Images of star systems, equations describing quantum mechanics, even glimpses of humanoid figures interacting with crystalline entities. Each revelation deepened the mystery, raising questions about the true nature of the Lumina and humanity's place in the cosmos. Suddenly, the crystal emitted a burst of energy that knocked everyone off their feet. When Emily regained consciousness, she found herself staring at a holographic projection hovering above the lab table. It depicted two intertwined spirals, one representing human DNA, the other a crystalline lattice structure. The message was clear: humans and Lumina were connected, perhaps even descended from the same source. But who or what had engineered this connection, and why? During a routine patrol near the northern expanse, Marcus's unit discovered ancient ruins predating both human and Lumina presence on Valyria. The structures bore unmistakable signs of advanced engineering, their surfaces etched with symbols that matched neither species' known languages. Specialist Torres ran his scanning equipment over the largest monolith, while Lieutenant Vega documented everything with her helmet camera. The air grew heavier as they worked, charged with static electricity that made their hair stand on end. When Torres accidentally touched one of the symbols, the entire site came alive with light, projecting holographic images of beings whose forms defied conventional biology. The implications were staggering. They weren't the first intelligent species to walk this planet. The holograms depicted towering figures composed of shifting energy fields, their features constantly morphing between crystalline and organic states. They moved gracefully, manipulating objects with gestures alone. One image showed them standing beside early human settlers, guiding them in constructing rudimentary shelters. Another revealed them working with Lumina, shaping their crystalline bodies into complex structures. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "These aren't ruins," he muttered. "They're memories." Lieutenant Vega stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "If these beings created both humans and Lumina, then maybe they're still here in some form." Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The ruins pulsed with light once more, and a low hum filled the air. Marcus grabbed his communicator. "We need to get out of here now." But as they turned to leave, the entrance collapsed, sealing them inside. The holograms flickered, then reformed into a single, towering figure that loomed over them. Its voice echoed in their minds. "You are ready." Emily's breakthrough came during a violent storm that knocked out power across half the colony. Working by emergency lighting, she manually cross-referenced the Lumina's energy signatures with the ancient symbols found at the northern expanse. The connections formed slowly at first, then accelerated as if guided by some unseen intelligence. Her assistant, Dr. Patel, watched in stunned silence as equations resolved themselves on multiple display screens. Outside, lightning struck one of the nearby crystal towers, sending a surge of energy through the ground that made their instruments spike wildly. Rather than destroying their work, the surge revealed hidden layers of information encoded within the Lumina's basic structure, information that pointed to a shared origin story with humanity itself. The storm raged on, its fury matching the intensity of Emily's discovery. Each equation that emerged painted a clearer picture. The Lumina weren't just intelligent beings, they were designed, much like humans, as part of an ancient experiment in consciousness evolution. The creators had left behind traces of their intent, embedding instructions within both species' genetic codes. These instructions hinted at a grand design, one meant to guide humanity and Lumina toward unity rather than conflict. But something had gone wrong. Something catastrophic that had derailed the experiment and turned allies into enemies. Dr. Patel broke the silence, his voice trembling with awe. "This is it, isn't it? The smoking gun. Whoever created us didn't mean for this war to happen." Emily nodded, her mind racing ahead. If they could decipher the full message embedded in the Lumina's code, they might be able to reverse engineer the original blueprint. It wouldn't just end the war, it would rewrite history. But before she could act on her findings, alarms blared throughout the lab. The power grid was failing again, and this time there was no backup system. They had minutes before everything went dark, potentially erasing all their progress. Marcus led his team through Gate 17, knowing they might not return. The portal's energy field wrapped around them like liquid light, distorting reality in ways that defied comprehension. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously as they emerged on the other side, finding themselves in a vast chamber filled with floating crystalline structures. Each formation pulsed with familiar rhythms, combinations of human DNA sequences and Lumina energy patterns intertwined like strands of cosmic DNA. Corporal Diaz reached out to touch one, but Marcus pulled him back just in time as the structure transformed into a perfect replica of Earth's night sky. They weren't in a place anymore. They were in a memory shared between species across millennia. The chamber resonated with a haunting melody, a symphony of sounds that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of space-time. Sergeant Rivera whispered, "It's like we're hearing the song of creation." Lieutenant Vega adjusted her helmet camera, capturing every detail, though she knew no recording could fully capture the surreal beauty of what they were witnessing. Marcus felt a profound sense of connection, as though the chamber recognized them as descendants of its makers. He stepped forward cautiously, his boots making no sound on the translucent floor. Suddenly, the air grew heavy, and the crystalline structures began to shift, forming walls that closed in around them. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the chamber, "Prove your worth." Before anyone could react, the walls dissolved into streams of light, revealing a series of challenges etched into the floor. Symbols lit up beneath their feet, pulsating with energy. Marcus realized they weren't just observers, they were participants in a test designed by the ancient creators. Success meant unlocking answers. Failure meant being trapped forever. The colony's leadership convened in secret, reviewing Emily's findings under armed guard. Projectors displayed evidence of genetic manipulation dating back to humanity's earliest days on Valyria, experiments that had created both enhanced human abilities and the Lumina themselves. General Harkov paced the length of the secure briefing room while Counselor Bennett studied the data with growing alarm. Through encrypted channels, similar discoveries were being reported from other settlements worldwide. The pieces fit together too perfectly to be coincidence. Someone had orchestrated this entire conflict from the beginning, using the quantum gates as tools of societal control. The question remained, who stood to benefit from keeping humans and Lumina perpetually at war? Counselor Bennett leaned forward, her hands trembling as she sifted through the documents. "If this gets out, it will tear society apart," she said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the projectors. General Harkov stopped pacing and fixed her with a steely gaze. "And if it doesn't, we risk losing everything. The Lumina aren't our enemies. They're victims, just like us." For the first time in decades, the council members sat in silence, grappling with the weight of Emily's revelations. Loyalties were tested, alliances shattered, and old grudges resurfaced as the truth forced everyone to confront uncomfortable questions about their roles in perpetuating the war. Emily stood at the center of the chaos, her resolve unwavering. She knew the path forward wouldn't be easy, but she also knew there was no turning back. Humanity had reached a crossroads, and the choices they made now would determine not only their survival but their identity as a species. As the meeting adjourned, Emily approached General Harkov. "We need to share this with the Lumina," she said firmly. "They deserve to know the truth." Harkov hesitated, then nodded. "Prepare a transmission. Let's hope they're willing to listen." The confrontation occurred during a simultaneous attack on multiple fronts, Lumina forces advancing while human defenses struggled to maintain their positions. Emily stood at the heart of the battle, broadcasting her revelations through every available channel. The crystals responded immediately, their assault patterns shifting from aggressive to defensive postures. Marcus's unit arrived just as the first tentative communications established between human commanders and Lumina representatives. Ancient memories flowed through the quantum network, revealing the truth about their creators, a long-extinct civilization that had seeded both species as experiments in consciousness evolution. The revelation hit everyone simultaneously, freezing the conflict in its tracks as two civilizations realized they'd been fighting their own kin. The battlefield fell eerily silent as soldiers lowered their weapons and Lumina formations dimmed their lights. For a moment, disbelief hung in the air like a thick fog. Then, slowly, understanding dawned. Humans and Lumina exchanged hesitant gestures, their movements mirroring each other in ways that spoke of a shared ancestry. Emily watched from the command center, tears streaming down her face as she witnessed the birth of a new era. Marcus joined her, his expression a mix of relief and exhaustion. "You did it," he said simply. "You saved us all." But even as celebrations began, doubts lingered. What would become of the quantum gates? Who or what had triggered the war in the first place? And most importantly, how could two species so deeply scarred by centuries of conflict learn to coexist? The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time, hope burned brighter than fear. Reconstruction efforts began with unprecedented cooperation between human and Lumina engineers. The quantum gates, now understood as neural network interfaces, facilitated rapid exchange of knowledge and technology. Emily worked alongside Lumina specialists to develop new energy sources based on their combined understanding of quantum mechanics. Old prejudices died hard, but shared goals proved stronger than generations of conditioned hatred. Settlements expanded vertically instead of horizontally, incorporating crystalline architecture that adapted dynamically to environmental changes. Children played among hybrid structures that sang with harmonic vibrations, learning languages that transcended spoken words. The fusion of human creativity and Lumina efficiency sparked a renaissance unlike anything Valyria had ever seen. Entire districts were rebuilt using self-repairing materials derived from Lumina biology, capable of withstanding the planet's harsh conditions. Schools introduced curricula that blended human history with Lumina memory archives, teaching future generations about their shared origins. Even entertainment evolved. Concerts featured performances where human musicians harmonized with Lumina light displays, creating symphonies that resonated across species. Yet, not everyone embraced this newfound unity. Underground movements spread propaganda, warning of the dangers of trusting the Lumina too quickly. Some humans feared losing their identity in the merger, while certain Lumina factions viewed cooperation as a betrayal of their autonomy. Emily found herself caught in the middle, defending her work against accusations of naivety. "This isn't just about science," she told a skeptical journalist during an interview. "It's about survival. Together, we're stronger than we ever were apart." Despite the resistance, progress continued, driven by those who dared to dream of a better future. Historical records underwent massive revision as joint human-Lumina teams excavated ancient sites across Valyria. Artifacts revealed sophisticated medical technologies capable of curing diseases thought incurable, while educational systems incorporated direct neural downloads of skills and knowledge. Marcus found himself leading integration missions rather than combat operations, helping communities adjust to their newfound understanding of identity and purpose. The old colonial mindset gave way to something entirely new, a society built on mutual growth rather than resource competition. Even the planet's harsh environment seemed to soften as their combined technologies began terraforming processes that benefited all life forms. One such mission took Marcus and his team deep into the southern wastes, where they uncovered a buried quantum gate larger than any previously discovered. Its surface was etched with intricate patterns that pulsed with a rhythm matching both human heartbeats and Lumina energy signatures. As technicians worked to activate it, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were unlocking something far greater than a simple portal. When the gate finally opened, it projected holograms of star maps detailing routes to other seeded worlds, planets where similar experiments in consciousness evolution might still be underway. News of the discovery spread quickly, igniting debates about whether humanity should venture beyond Valyria or focus on healing their current home. Emily argued passionately for exploration, believing it was their duty to reconnect with the Creator's legacy. Others, like General Harkov, cautioned against overextending themselves too soon. "We've barely begun to heal our wounds here," he said during a heated council meeting. "How can we hope to face whatever lies out there without tearing ourselves apart again?" The decision ultimately rested with the people, who voted overwhelmingly in favor of reaching out to the stars. Challenges remained as factions resisted the new order, clinging to outdated beliefs about racial purity and technological superiority. Emily faced assassination attempts while presenting her research at global conferences, protected by both human security forces and Lumina energy shields. Underground movements spread misinformation, attempting to reignite hostilities between species. Yet the truth proved resilient, spreading through the quantum network faster than fear could take root. Younger generations embraced their hybrid heritage, developing abilities that blended human creativity with Lumina efficiency. The very concept of separate species began to blur as natural evolution accelerated through shared genetic material. In one particularly tense incident, a radical group infiltrated a research facility housing experimental hybrids, children born with traits from both humans and Lumina. Their crystalline skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, and their minds processed information at speeds unmatched by either parent species. The radicals intended to kidnap them, claiming these children were abominations. But before they could act, the hybrids demonstrated a collective intelligence that overwhelmed their attackers, disabling weapons and trapping the intruders until authorities arrived. The event shocked the world, forcing many to confront their biases and reconsider what it meant to be human. Meanwhile, scientists delved deeper into the implications of hybridization, discovering that the process wasn't limited to physical traits. Memories, emotions, and even instincts could be shared across species lines, creating bonds stronger than blood ties. These revelations challenged traditional notions of family and community, leading some to form entirely new social structures based on shared experiences rather than biological relationships. Space exploration entered a golden age as combined human Lumina vessels utilized quantum gate technology to traverse distances previously impossible. Ancient star charts found in buried archives led to discoveries of other seeded worlds, each with its own unique blend of consciousness experiments. Diplomatic relations formed with civilizations that recognized their common origin, creating a galactic network of shared knowledge and experience. Emily's original laboratory transformed into a museum showcasing the journey from conflict to cooperation, visited by delegations from dozens of worlds. The crimson skies of Valyria no longer represented struggle and survival, but served as a reminder of how far they'd come through understanding and unity. On one such mission, Marcus commanded a vessel tasked with investigating a distant planet where the Creator's influence appeared strongest. As they approached, the crew detected signals identical to those emitted by Valyria's quantum gates. Upon landing, they discovered ruins far more advanced than anything they'd encountered before, guarded by crystalline sentinels programmed to test visitors' intentions. The tests ranged from solving complex puzzles to demonstrating acts of compassion toward simulated beings. Only those who passed were granted access to the inner sanctum, a chamber containing a living archive of the Creator's final messages. The message was clear: humanity and Lumina were not alone. Countless other species existed throughout the galaxy, each part of the same grand experiment. The Creators had envisioned a universe united by diversity, where differences strengthened rather than divided. But they had also warned of the dangers of hubris and division, urging their descendants to remain vigilant against forces that sought to exploit their unity for personal gain. Years later, Marcus stood beside Emily at the dedication of Unity Spire, a monument constructed from living crystal that housed the central quantum gate nexus. Children of mixed heritage played freely among its branches, their laughter echoing through the structure like music. The old scars of war had healed into something beautiful, a society that valued diversity of thought and form above all else. As the sun set behind the spire, casting rainbow refractions across the landscape, Emily placed her hand against the crystal surface. The Lumina presence responded warmly, acknowledging their shared future. No longer separate species, they had become something greater, a single civilization capable of reaching for the stars together. Marcus turned to Emily, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Do you think the Creators would be proud of us?" he asked quietly. Emily gazed at the horizon, her eyes reflecting the kaleidoscope of colors dancing across the sky. "I think they'd tell us to keep going," she replied, "to never stop learning, growing, exploring. After all, the universe is vast, and we're only just beginning." As fireworks erupted overhead, celebrating a decade of peace and prosperity, Marcus felt a profound sense of fulfillment. They had faced unimaginable challenges, endured unimaginable losses, and emerged stronger for it. The road ahead would undoubtedly bring new trials, but together they were ready to face whatever came next. For the first time in centuries, hope burned brighter than fear, lighting the way to a future filled with endless possibilities. Remember to subscribe for more mind-bending science fiction stories that challenge everything you think you know about the universe.